This is the Big Chat Small Talk podcast for dynamic, engaged minds who love thought-provoking discussions about big life challenges in an approachable way. Join me, Bernie Bennett,
and me, Louise Anderson, to challenge your own perspective, to share insights and wisdom on navigating life's demands. Let us have a big chat about important issues in a small talk way.
Polyamorous versus monogamy. At the heart of this debate lies the very fabric of human relationship, societal norms, and individual freedoms. As we delve into this complex and multifaceted topic, it is imperative that we approach it with an open mind, a spirit of critical inquiry, and a deep respect for differing perspectives. On the one hand, we have monogamy, a relationship structure deeply ingrained in many cultures and societies around the world. On the other hand, we have polyamory, a practice that challenges the conventional norms of a monogamous relationship by allowing individuals to have multiple partners simultaneously. So, the question is polyamory on the rise and monogamy now taboo? What do you think?
Well, as somebody who's back in the wasteland, as they call it, I don't think monogamy is taboo. I think what it is, it's just become it's almost like the sacred chalice almost, the golden compass.
Do you think people are actually looking to get married? You say sacred chalice, like that is the goal, but I don't know that it's the goal anymore, which is why it's probably more taboo over other types of relationships.
I think it's just got harder. It's just harder to find somebody that
willing to commit,
yeah,
wanting to commit,
and can
able
can
and
tough
free to commit,
able and free,
like
and can tough it out. Exactly. And I think as well with the way that things have gone in now in dating, people are just more open about dating multiple people at the same time. It's not as taboo as it was before. And also it's like with the dating trends, the dating apps, the access that people have to more and more people, there's just more options.
Well, you look at Jada and Will and you go, that's more of an open marriage as well.
Yeah.
So we're seeing more of that, aren't we?
You are, and people are talking openly about it too. And that's not to say that it never happened before. It's just that people just,
You didn't hear about it.
You didn't hear about it, yeah.
It did happen. The swingers clubs were happening behind the scenes.
And I think monogamy has changed. I mean, it's changed from what it used to be a few generations ago. Let's just define it. Monogamy back in the day used to be one person for life, whereas monogamy now is just one person at a time. So... And the thing is, we live longer, so we're more likely to have multiple long-term relationships. We're seeing it happen already. People have at least 2 to 3 marriages or 2 to 3 long-term relationships, and children can come from that, and home ownership, etc.
Blended families, yeah.
Exactly, blended families. And we may, in this society, because if you think about monogamy and in terms of what's recognised as matrimonial union, you can only have a matrimonial union between 2 people.
Yeah.
Whereas there are places in the world where you have polygamy, which is a marital union between one male and multiple spouses. So because this trend now of having polyamorous relationships, etc., and we are having more long-term relationships in our lives because we're living longer too, we're an aging population.
Yeah.
You might start to see that becoming more and more and more of a trend of seeing families actually have that kind of polygamous setup.
So if we were to look at the pros and cons so that we can evaluate whether this is a good trend or not. Okay, so if we were to go with monogamy, what are the pros and cons?
Well, I think the most popular ones tend to be, security, stability, and commitment within the confines of a partnership. It creates a solid foundation for building families, nurturing children, and sustaining a long-term bond based on mutual trust and respect. But the cons that are aired now, especially in modern times, is that people are saying it's outdated, it's overly restricted, it's unnatural to just have one person for life. There are high divorce rates and there are reports of infidelity and sexual boredom. But we know that that's nothing new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of part and parcel of being married, right?
Yeah. You bore me, but I love you.
Yeah.
So what do you think are the pros and cons then with polyamorous relationships?
I think the pros would be companionship. So you still get something similar to what you get within a marriage, but you actually get to keep your money. You get sexual variety. You can actually have larger families because you're not committed to one individual. So that can be seen as a pro or a con. There's freedom because you're not tied to one individual. And that then speaks of less commitment as well. But the cons, you're introducing more jealousy within your partnerships, there's more competition. And then there's legal implications as well, and inheritance and custody. Well, we don't call it custody over here, but the rights over children and stuff, which outside of a marriage, you don't really have many legal
protections.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Exactly.
So I don't know if that's a good thing.
Well, this is it. It goes back to the sense and sensibilities of society. As it's being portrayed, there seems to be a rise in polyamorous relationships. Polygamy is becoming a little bit more less taboo. People are looking at it thinking, well, actually, this could work.
I kind of like it.
I like it, yeah. And so eventually, if that starts to become an embedded practice or becomes far more acceptable, you might see certain things being developed or evolving even in our legal structure.
Do you really think our law is going to change in order to... I know it seems like a secular society, but we are, Church of England. I think it's Church of England, isn't it?
Church of England,
in this country. So you think our laws are going to change to allow... Well, do you know what, King Henry? Wasn't it Henry VIII?
He was Henry
VIII.
Who changed the law. Who changed the law.
There's always a possibility, I suppose.
Exactly. And he beheaded his wives too.
To make sure.
All for the quest of having a son. But so how would you say, so if you're in a polygamous relationship or polyamorous relationship, how do you think then things like jealousy and trust and communication differ to a monogamous relationship?
I don't think you need to worry about trust within a monogamous relationship, if I can say the word properly, because you are actually saying your marriage vows does that as well. You're actually declaring that I'm committed to just you. So from a jealousy perspective, I don't need to worry about another woman or another partner of any sort. But inside a polygamous or which one we're looking at?
Well, polyamorous. Yeah.
Polyamorous, so where you just got loads of partners.
Yeah.
I think well, it depends on how you're structured as an individual and your personality, because if you can deal with it, then it's good because it's working for you. If you're subscribing to those values, what's working for him is working for you as well. Yeah. You get to keep your money as well. There's less commitment.
Come back to this money thing.
No, it's important. It's very important.
There's going to be a hook on that.
But you get to keep your money. Your financial wealth is secure within you. You're not worried about committing because you're as free as they are. You're as free-spirited and are able to look at the next guy and go, gorge, I'm out with him tonight. And do you know what I mean? So I think it's how you are structured as an individual, whether this jealousy plays a role or not. And if it's not for you, you need to go back to the one-on-one. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think there can be issues of jealousy and trust in a polygamy type of setup or unit. Unless, of course, there are clear understandings as to who is going to be in what role and at what level of significance. Right. So there are countries in the world that practice polygamy. So you'll have the one husband and multiple wives. And there is a pecking order. There's wife number 1, wife number 2, wife number 3, and potentially...
Do they keep going?
And they can, I think in some places maximum 4, but in other places I think they can keep going.
They have a rule. They have a rule.
There are only 4. And then your sons from your first marriage are more likely to inherit title, inherit land, be the first line in that succession line.
Right.
And that in itself can probably cause politics, jealousy,
because if you
rivalry.
haven't had a boy and you're in that group, I can see how that...
You can see that. And there may also be a situation where the first marriage was probably an arranged marriage.
Right.
Whereas the second or third marriage would be probably more for love. So the affection that you're getting from the husband will be slightly different. And and again, it's down to the individual on what they're willing to accept and how they're going to manage their emotions in that situation. All I know is if I was in a polygamous family unit, I'm number 1.
You're number 1. You want to be number 1.
Number 1. or actually, and I joke about this, I think if I wanted to be in that setup, I would probably only do it with the billionaire.
Okay, we come back to that billionaire thing.
I'll probably only do it with the billionaire. just drop enough money in my bank account.
Oh,
but no, I'm kidding. I believe in exclusive couples.
Yeah, sure. Just give me about a billion.
just for the record.
A little bit.
No, but I think, I think it can get quite political.
Yeah.
And even in a monogamous relationship, yes, you're meant to trust, you've said vows or you've made a commitment to one another, but that doesn't mean that can't be shaken.
Yeah, but you're not expecting it. It can be shaken because someone does venture outside of the rules or your commitment. It's not expected. So the jealousy in itself is not embedded within the whole relationship from the start, if that makes any sense.
But that's a key word, expected. You see, I like that word because in a polygamous setup, it's expected.
And that's probably...
And therefore, and therefore it probably can filter and,
you're prepared for it.
You're prepared for it,
it's not that much of a big deal.
Exactly.
But I do think that, again, it's how you are structured as an individual, because even though you're prepared for it, when it actually does happen, because if you have given any piece of your heart away, seeing them with somebody else is going to hurt regardless.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it comes down to, like you said, this individual, how you're structured, self-esteem.
Yes.
Too. Yeah. But again, it's like, even in a monogamous relationship, because like you said, you don't expect it. But what happens if there is a risk of that? Because you still have to trust, and trust can sometimes be shaken.
Yeah,
you're like looking at me thinking.
I can see it can be shaken, but the fact that it's not expected, that's why I think the jealousy issue is it just doesn't play a role until it happens, and then at the point in which it happens, then you have to deal with it, obviously.
Yeah.
But
because you still have to be in your relationship and work on your trust. You have the trust. There's either trust or no trust, but you still have to work on maintaining that trust, maintaining that bond.
Don't you think there's more competition, though, in regards to a polyamorous relationship over a monogamous one?
Well, yeah, I do think that, but then it's expected as well. Again, I think you said that word, and it's like, yeah, but if you're expecting it makes sense. So you knew, it's like you've made your bed, you've got to lie in it in some ways.
Yeah.
Am I stretching on that one?
I like the pun.
It's expected. So would you consider then, well, I think, in your view, do you think monogamy has become taboo?
I do. I think our young kids aren't thinking in that way. The dating apps, I think, it does contribute to that mentality of quick, easy. I have everything I want. Why do I need to commit? That sort of thing. I don't think the idea of building a family is part and parcel of today's thought process of our kids. And I think that's the key for getting married. For me, anyway, I think that's the reason for getting married, because you want to have a holistic family, values with kids contained therein, and they're all protected. But I don't think that's what's going on at the minute with the whole dating apps and stuff. It's just quick. It's just sex. It's just immediate gratification.
Variety. Choice. Everything's negotiable.
But this, this whole dating app, how many years? I'm thinking, give it a little bit more time. And those that have grown up with it, when they get to their 40s, 50s, 60s, they might think, I wish I'd done it differently.
True. But then saying that as well, marriage is still very popular. Weddings are still very popular.
I love a wedding.
Yeah.
I love getting my hat on. My feathered hat.
So again, it's still ingrained in our society. People seem to still be working towards finding the one that they can settle down with, whether that means getting married or not, but finding the one that they can settle down with.
Don't you find that weddings are more conducive to individuals which have some type of religious background? Because outside of that, I don't think they're that common.
I don't know. I can see your point, but I still think, even because I know a lot of people who are non-religious, and the
idea of getting married,
is still very much ingrained as something that they should do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, some of my friends who do come, or some people even in my relations who come from very religious backgrounds, they seem to have delayed that. They seem to have gone down the cohabiting route first, and then deciding whether they want to marry that person. So,
and sometimes what happens, they go down the cohabiting route and never bother.
Yes, never bother to get married.
Bother. Why bother? There's only, if you can, you have the cow and you can get the milk, why bother? just continue cohabiting. But I just think the legal implications for cohabiting partners is just not a great package if you want to have kids in that relationship.
And property ownership as well. You're not protected under matrimonial laws. And there is this assumption in this country where people think you have common law husbands and wives. Doesn't exist. You don't.
You can have tenants in common, though, insofar as the property laws are concerned. But yeah, I just wouldn't opt for it. I'd like it to be a lot more sure.
Clear cut.
Nice and clear cut. Here's the marriage certificate, 50-50.
Yeah. We can stop the government getting the tax.
Absolutely,
Well, sometimes that tends to be financial reasons as well, tend to be a driver for marriage.
Yeah.
The rich have done it for a very long time, getting married to make sure that the tax man doesn't get the money. But I do think I can still, even though and you were right, it will be interesting to see the generation that has grown up with these apps and with these new trends. It will be interesting to see what they say in their 60s. But I suppose you're like me. I believe in an exclusive club of 2.
Yes.
I want my soulmate.
I love that.
Where are you? And it's only because I think in my nature, I like partnership. I like being able to,
someone you can rely on.
Someone you can rely on. And I see that with you and your hubby. If you've got a doubt about something, let me just check in with him.
I do, don't I?
Yeah, you do. You two love a little huddle, don't you?
I do. He's brilliant.
And I think that's really unique. And I think if there's ever a time to try and celebrate that and try and resell that as a package, because we've seen the pitfalls of modern dating and the fact that it's so optional and it's so negotiable and it's this hookup culture. There's a lot of not so great stuff coming out of that. You've got a lot of toxic stuff coming out of it. And I think there's some stats, but please don't quote me. But for the first time, come, I think, 2030, majority of women in their 30s will be single and childless and living alone and probably depressed and on antidepressants. That's not a good future.
That's not a good model.
It's not a good model. It isn't.
So I'm going to say I'm going to be watching this space to see the 40s, 50s and 60-year-olds if I'm still alive. I do think that monogamy is taboo at the minute, but I do think there's going to be a switch back. There needs to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for listening to the Big Chat Small Talk with Bernie and Louise.
Follow us on Instagram at Big Chat Small Talk.